The gold coins felt ice cold in my trembling hands, and I knew, in that single terrible moment, that everything my grandfather ever told me was a lie. For 70 years, Henri Laurent had hidden a secret so dark, so impossible, that discovering it would force me to choose between protecting my family and exposing a truth the world needed to know. What I found in that cottage wasn't just stolen Nazi gold worth $8 million. It was evidence of something far more complicated, far more disturbing, something that would challenge everything I thought I knew about good and evil. The brittle French sunlight, usually a balm that softened the edges of the world, making the ancient stones of Provence glow with the golden warmth, felt like a harsh, unforgiving interrogator through the dusty, leaded window panes of Grandfather Henri's cottage. A faint scent of ancient earth and blooming jasmine, heavy and sweet, drifted in from the overgrown garden, a stark, almost cruel contrast to the growing coldness that was rapidly congealing in my stomach. I was sifting through decades of quiet accumulation, a task that, just moments before, had felt like a gentle communion with a past, a tender exploration of a beloved life. Worn gardening gloves, still retaining the faint scent of soil and lavender. A stack of meticulously repaired pocket watches, their tiny gears and springs glinting faintly in the shifting light, each one a testament to his patience and skill. The comforting, almost ephemeral scent of pipe tobacco still clung to the threadbare armchair by the hearth, a ghost of his presence. This was my inheritance, a modest slice of rural tranquility, nestled deep in the heart of Provence, bequeathed by a man I believed to be nothing more than a humble, kind-hearted watchmaker, whose biggest secret was perhaps a fondness for cheap local wine or a penchant for staying up late with a good book. I ran my hand over the rough-hewn, darkened wood of his old writing desk, its surface scarred with generations of use, with countless hours of intricate work, when my fingers snagged on a barely perceptible seam, a slight indentation that didn't quite match the grain, a hidden catch. My heart gave a tiny anticipatory lurch, a flicker of childhood wonder at the discovery of a secret compartment. A thrill I hadn't felt in years. A quiet click, barely audible above the insistent, almost deafening chirping of cicadas outside, echoed in the stillness of the room, magnified by the sudden tension. The scent of ancient dust, thick and pungent, trapped for decades, puffed into the air as a false bottom slid open with a soft, ominous groan. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded crimson velvet, its pile flattened by time, its rich color muted to a somber burgundy, lay not the expected family heirlooms, not sentimental letters or old photographs, but a stack of cold, heavy gold coins, their distinctive glint too yellow, too ancient, too malevolent to be ordinary currency. Their surfaces, dulled with age, still bore an unmistakable, chilling mark. Next to them, a sheaf of brittle yellow documents, tied with a faded, almost crumbling ribbon, its silk threads disintegrating at my touch, each document bearing a different name, a different life. And beneath it all, a single horrifying photograph, its edges curled and cracked with age, its black and white tones intensifying the shock, draining the color from my already reeling world. My grandfather, Henri, his face unmistakably familiar, yet utterly monstrous, staring out from the chilling, sharp-edged uniform of an SS officer. The world tilted, plunging me into an abyss where every memory, every cherished belief, every quiet truth about my family was instantly, irrevocably consumed by a single terrifying scream that tore from my gut and echoed only in the silent, desolate chambers of my own mind, leaving me gasping for air, clutching at the desk for support, the cold gold coins still burning in my trembling hand, the ghost of my grandfather's monstrous past suddenly, terrifyingly alive and breathing in the sunlit room. My entire life up until that shattering moment had been anchored by the bedrock of a seemingly idyllic past, a carefully constructed narrative of quiet decency and unwavering moral rectitude. I was Emma Laurent, 28 years old, a museum curator specializing in World War II history, a cruel, grotesque irony I would later grapple with, one that would haunt my every waking moment, mocking my professional passion. My days in Chicago were spent meticulously cataloging artifacts, researching forgotten narratives, and crafting exhibitions that honored the sacrifices and triumphs of a generation. A generation I now discovered my own family had been intimately, tragically involved in on the darkest, most unfathomable side. The smell of old paper, of preservation chemicals, of hushed reverence for history was as familiar to me as my own skin, a comforting professional aroma that usually grounded me. My passion for Webby-Wine history had been subtly nurtured by grandfather Henri. Though he never spoke directly of the conflict, he rarely spoke of the war, dismissing it with a melancholic Gallic shrug and a wistful glance at the rolling, lavender-hazed hills outside his cottage window, the endless purple stretches of Provence, a landscape that now seemed to hide monstrous secrets. I had interpreted his silence as the quiet trauma of a brave resistance fighter, a man who had seen too much, endured unimaginable hardship, and simply wished to forget the horrors. I pictured him, a young man, perhaps a hero of the shadows, silently defying occupation, fighting for freedom. He was a beacon of quiet wisdom, his hands, calloused and precise from a lifetime of repairing intricate mechanisms, always smelling faintly of pipe tobacco and the delicate earthy oil he used on his watches, a comforting, familiar scent that now felt like a shroud, clinging to the memory of a lie. My childhood summers were spent at his cottage, a sanctuary of rustic charm, of sun-drenched days and cool, star-filled nights. I'd wake to the scent of strong, bitter coffee and fresh, flaky croissants, the chirping of cicadas providing a constant, soothing soundtrack to long, sun-drenched days. We'd walk through lavender fields, their purple haze stretching to the horizon, his hand, warm and secure, holding mine, his fingers gentle, guiding. He'd teach me about the stars, identifying constellations in the inky blackness of the Provençal night, about the delicate balance of nature, about the quiet dignity of craftsmanship, the beauty in precision. He was the quintessential French grandfather, humble, kind, a living link to a gentle, untroubled past, a quiet hero in my young, naive imagination. My mother, his only child, revered him, her face softening with a special tenderness whenever his name was mentioned, her eyes glistening with affection, a daughter's unconditional love. She spoke of his stoicism, his resilience, his unwavering moral compass, attributes she believed he had passed on to me, a precious, untainted legacy. Our family name, Laurent, felt solid, respectable, synonymous with generations of quiet, honest work in the French countryside, a name I bore with pride, a symbol of heritage. This carefully constructed narrative, this comforting illusion, this beautiful, elaborate lie, had been the very foundation of my identity, making the hidden compartment's contents not just a discovery, but a profound personal annihilation, a devastating rupture in the fabric of my entire existence, leaving me utterly adrift and questioning everything. The resistance of the desk's ancient, dry wood as I fought with the hidden catch felt almost symbolic, a struggle against a truth determined to stay buried, to remain locked away in the darkness of the past. My fingers scraped against the rough grain, a faint splinter embedding itself in my thumb, a small, sharp pain that barely registered against the escalating dread. When it finally gave way with a soft, protesting groan, like an old man sighing, a small cloud of ancient dust, thick and pungent, puffed into the air, tickling my nose, making my eyes water, making me cough. A dry, choked sound. The air in the sunlit room, once fresh with the scent of lavender and old wood, suddenly felt heavy, cloying, imbued with the weight of decades of secrets, of buried atrocities, of unspeakable evil, a suffocating presence. My breath caught in my throat, a silent gasp of terror, paralyzing me. Nestled on a bed of faded crimson velvet, its pile flattened by time, its rich color muted to a somber burgundy, lay the objects that would irrevocably shatter my world, my understanding, my very soul. First, the gold coins. Not the mundane currency of a humble watchmaker, but thick, heavy discs, their surfaces dulled with age, yet still retaining an unmistakable, malevolent gleam. A faint, cold fire that seemed to pulse. Their weight in my palm was unsettling. A cold, dense reality that spoke of immense, illicit wealth, of unspeakable transactions, of a fortune built on unimaginable suffering. The distinctive, stylized eagle and swastika, even partially obscured by a thin film of grime, were unmistakable, searing themselves into my vision, burning into my mind's eye, a symbol of pure evil. Nazi gold. The words echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper of unspeakable atrocities, of unimaginable suffering, the blood of countless victims clinging to the cold metal, staining my hands, my soul. Next, a sheaf of brittle yellow documents tied with a faded, almost crumbling ribbon, its silk threads disintegrating at my touch, releasing a faint scent of mildew. Birth certificates, identity cards, travel papers, all bearing a precise, almost identical handwriting. My grandfather's neat, legible script, a chilling testament to his meticulous nature. But the names: Henri Dubois, Jean-Luc Moreau, and finally the name I knew, Henri Laurent. Each document meticulously crafted, each detail perfectly executed, a testament to a life meticulously forged, a ghost in multiple guises, a man who had lived 1,000 lies, shedding identities like old clothes. The smell of old paper, of forgotten lives, of manufactured identities filled my nostrils, a sickening aroma of deception, of profound betrayal. And beneath it all, lying face up, a single horrifying photograph, its edges curled and cracked with age, its black and white tones intensifying the shock, draining the color from my already reeling world, leaving it stark and barren. It was him, my grandfather, his face so familiar, so beloved, yet utterly monstrous, a chilling indifference in his eyes, staring out from the chilling, sharp-edged uniform of an SS officer, his cap pulled low, shadowing his face, a cold, unfeeling gaze that was utterly alien to the man I knew, to the man I loved. The world tilted, plunging me into an abyss where every memory, every cherished belief, every quiet truth about my family was instantly, irrevocably consumed by a single, silent scream that tore from my gut and echoed only in the desolate, cavernous chambers of my own mind, leaving me gasping for air, clutching at the desk for support, the cold gold coin still burning in my trembling hand, the ghost of my grandfather's monstrous past suddenly, terrifyingly, alive and breathing in the sunlit room, demanding its reckoning. Disbelief was the first frantic emotion, a desperate clawing at the walls of reality, a frantic, visceral denial that vibrated through my very bones. "No," I whispered, my voice thin, reedy, barely audible even to myself, lost in the sudden, echoing silence of the room, swallowed by the enormity of it all. "No, this isn't real. This can't be real." It was a cruel joke, a macabre prank, a misplaced prop from one of my museum exhibitions, a twisted piece of performance art. a nightmare from which I desperately needed to wake. But the cold, undeniable weight of the gold in my hand, the unmistakable malevolent gleam of the swastika, the irrefutable image in the photograph, the precise, familiar handwriting on the forged documents. They screamed a truth I couldn't deny, a reality that forced its way into my consciousness, pushing aside all rational thought, all comforting illusions. My stomach clenched, a violent nausea rising in my throat, the bitter taste of betrayal filling my mouth, sharp and metallic like blood. A cold sweat pricked my hairline, despite the cool air of the cottage, tracing icy rivulets down my temples and neck, a physical manifestation of my terror. My grandfather, the gentle, humble watchmaker, the man who smelled of pipe tobacco and clean linen, who taught me patience and kindness, who mended my scraped knees and told me stories of French folklore by the crackling fire, was a Nazi. Not just a bystander, not a victim, not someone forced into impossible choices, but an active participant, a perpetrator, a uniform-clad monster, his face devoid of remorse in the faded image, his eyes holding and chilling emptiness. The clash of identities, the grotesque dichotomy, was a profound, unbearable assault on my very being, tearing apart my understanding of good and evil, of humanity itself. Every memory of him, every loving word, every shared laugh in the lavender fields, every story he told, was instantly tainted, corrupted, rewound, and replayed through a filter of unspeakable evil, through the chilling lens of his hidden past, a shadow clinging to every joyful moment. Was his tenderness a performance? His wisdom a charade? His quiet life in Provence merely a meticulously crafted refuge from a past too heinous to contemplate, a perfect hiding place for a man steeped in blood? The betrayal was personal, deeply intimate, cutting to the very core of my identity, leaving me fractured, disoriented. It wasn't just a historical revelation. It was a dagger plunged into the heart of my family, tearing apart the fabric of my own identity, leaving me fractured, questioning my very origins. My passion for but-go-to history, once a source of intellectual pride, of detached academic inquiry, now felt like a cruel irony, a cosmic joke played at my expense, a mockery of my life's work, a betrayal by the very subject I held sacred. I, Henri Laurent, the curator, the historian, the guardian of truth, had been living a lie, unknowingly built on the bones of countless victims, a lie carefully nurtured by the very man I adored. The knowledge was a crushing weight pressing down on me, threatening to suffocate me in the suffocating silence of that sunlit, suddenly terrifying room, where even the chirping of the cicadas seemed to mock my shattered innocence, the relentless sounds echoing my internal torment. But as my mind reeled from the initial shock, battling the overwhelming nausea and disbelief, a small worn leather-bound journal, almost hidden beneath the faded crimson velvet lining of the compartment, caught my eye, a sliver of darkness in the opulence of the gold. Its cover was smooth and cool beneath my trembling fingers, the leather aged and supple, bearing the patina of countless touches of secrets held close. I opened it, the pages brittle with time, emanating the faint, sweet, decaying smell of old paper and dried ink, a scent that now felt heavy, with unspoken secrets, with hidden narratives. What I found within was another layer of profound, mind-bending complexity, a contradiction so stark it defied comprehension, twisting my reality even further, fracturing it into incomprehensible pieces. The initial entries were a meticulous, almost clinical accounting of valuables, gold watches, diamond rings, stacks of foreign currency, all itemized with chilling precision, followed by dates and locations. that corresponded unmistakably to concentration camps. Their names whispered in the darkest corners of history, echoing with unspeakable pain. Descriptions of confiscated assets tallied with the detached efficiency of a banker, a meticulous inventory of stolen lives, of human possessions reduced to numbers. He was a concentration camp accountant, as the SS photo implied, tallying the stolen possessions of the doomed, of those sent to their deaths, his hands stained by their suffering. My breath hitched, a fresh wave of horror washing over me, confirming the darkest suspicions, solidifying the monstrous truth, making it undeniably real. But then, as I turned the pages, the entries shifted, jarringly, impossibly, like a sudden, unexpected chord in a discordant symphony, a dissonant note that fractured the terrifying melody. Amidst the ledger of stolen lives, there appeared another list: names, dates, ages, destinations. Child number 17, Isaac Goldberg, age 6, transported to Swiss border via Vercors Resistance Network. Child number 23, Lena Steiner, age 9, hidden with family in Limoges. 47 names, each entry a meticulous record of a life saved, of a child smuggled to safety, often across treacherous borders, through perilous routes, under the very nose of the regime he served, the regime he was an integral part of. My grandfather, a concentration camp accountant, who stole from prisoners, who wore the uniform of death, whose hands were stained with innocent blood, and a secret rescuer of Jewish children, a clandestine hero, risking his life against the very system he worked for. The duality was a monstrous paradox, a moral tightrope walked by a man who had been both monster and savior, meticulously balancing the ledger of his own crimes with acts of profound clandestine heroism, a desperate, impossible attempt at atonement, at somehow justifying his own existence. The journal was not just a record, it was a confession, a desperate, lifelong attempt at atonement, its faded ink a testament to a soul irrevocably fractured by the unimaginable horrors of war, a shattered mirror reflecting light and shadow, good and evil, in terrifying juxtaposition. The very air in the cottage now crackled with the echoes of his impossible, bifurcated life, the weight of the journal burning in my hands, its pages whispering tales of both despair and desperate hope, of monstrous cruelty and improbable kindness. My curatorial instincts, honed by years of academic rigor, by countless hours of historical research, kicked in, a desperate intellectual attempt to impose order on the chaos of my personal world, to make sense of the senseless, to rationalize the irrational. I needed answers, cold, hard facts, to explain this monstrous paradox, this chilling contradiction that defined the man I loved and abhorred, this enigma that was my own grandfather. I spent weeks closeted in the cottage, the outside world fading into a distant hum, the vibrant sounds of Provence muted, almost irrelevant as my focus narrowed to the past. My laptop became my portal to the past, its screen a window into the darkest, most terrifying corners of human history, a gateway to a past I now realized was intimately, devastatingly mine. I cross-referenced names, dates, and locations from Henri's journal with historical records of concentration camps, of wartime resistance networks, of Jewish refugee routes, sifting through digital archives and dusty microfiches in online databases. The terror mounted as I meticulously confirmed his presence, his role, as an accountant in a notorious camp, his name appearing in archived SS rosters under Henri Dubois. A chilling confirmation of the photograph, its image burned into my mind. The horror was visceral, a cold dread that settled deep in my bones, permeating my very core, freezing my blood. I read survivor testimonies, wrenching accounts of the brutal efficiency of the camp administration, the dehumanizing process of property confiscation, the systematic stripping of dignity, knowing my grandfather had been part of it, had facilitated it, had turned human lives into ledger entries. The stolen gold I discovered through academic texts and economic analyses of wartime looting was indeed consistent with the types of valuables pilfered from prisoners before their extermination, its worth even then staggering, a fortune built on human suffering, on the dying breaths of countless souls, on the very last vestiges of their existence. Simultaneously, the details of his escape, his faked death in the chaotic final days of 1945, pieced together from fragmented Allied reports and obscure local police records, painted a picture of cunning and ruthless self-preservation, a man desperate to survive, no matter the cost, no matter the truth he buried. He hadn't just survived. He had meticulously erased his past, creating the identity of Henri Laurent, the humble watchmaker of Provence, burying his monstrous truth under 60 years of quiet, rural life, a perfect, impenetrable disguise. But the journal also led me down another equally astonishing path, a sliver of light piercing the profound darkness, an unexpected glimpse of humanity amidst the horror. The Vercors, resistance network mentioned repeatedly in his entries, with its clandestine operations and daring escapes, was a real and incredibly courageous operation. Its history well documented in the annals of wartime heroism. The family names he listed in Limoges, in Grenoble, in small, forgotten hamlets across France. I found them in local archives, records of courageous individuals who had hidden Jewish children, often at immense personal risk, defying the very laws of their occupiers. The detailed routes to the Swiss border, meticulously drawn in the margins of his journal, the coded messages, the precise timing of the transports, often coinciding with chaotic events or diversions. They align chillingly with known resistance movements, with published accounts of escape routes, confirming their authenticity. Henri, the concentration camp accountant, had used his intimate knowledge of the regime's weaknesses, his access to documents, his ability to move unnoticed within the Nazi bureaucracy, his very uniform providing a shield and a passport, to secretly smuggle dozens of Jewish children to safety. A clandestine act of profound courage, a desperate defiance of his own evil. He had risked his life, not once but repeatedly, meticulously keeping records of every single child. Every fragile life he had snatched from the jaws of the Holocaust. Each entry a desperate act of moral bookkeeping, an attempt to balance an impossibly heavy ledger. 47 names, 47 souls, their individual stories now whispering from the faded pages of his confession, their lives a testament to resilience and survival. Many of these names, I discovered with a gasp of disbelief, belonged to individuals who had gone on to live extraordinary lives, becoming prominent figures worldwide, celebrated scientists, renowned concert pianists, influential philanthropists, respected politicians, each one a shining light against the darkness of the past, a living testament to defiance. The moral dilemma intensified, taking on a terrifying monumental scale. I held evidence of both unimaginable atrocities and profound heroism, a man who epitomized the darkest and brightest extremes of human nature, a creature of light and shadow intertwined, a paradox that tore at my very soul. And I held 8 million in stolen Nazi gold, a fortune built on Holocaust victims' stolen property, a chilling testament to his profound greed, to his capacity for evil. My beloved grandfather was both monster and savior, and his impossible legacy now rested solely in my trembling hands, forcing me to confront not just history, but the very essence of good and evil, redemption and damnation. A moral tightrope I was forced to walk alone, without a net. The weight of it all, the sheer moral impossibility, pressed down on me, making the air in the cottage heavy, suffocating, each breath a conscious, painful effort. The scent of old paper and dust, once just a sign of age, now felt like the lingering odor of complicity, of hidden evil, a smell that permeated everything. How could I reconcile the gentle man who had taught me to identify constellations, whose hand had guided mine in learning to fix delicate clockwork, his voice soft with encouragement, with the cold, indifferent face in that SS uniform, a symbol of ultimate cruelty, a face utterly devoid of humanity? How could I honor the man who saved children while simultaneously condemning the one who stole from their dying parents, profiting from their final, agonizing moments? The conflict raged within me, a silent internal scream that left me exhausted, mentally and emotionally drained, fracturing my sense of self, leaving me adrift. The thought of exposing him, of shattering my mother's cherished memories of her father, of utterly destroying the respectable Laurent family name, dragging it through the mud of history, making it synonymous with shame, filled me with profound dread, a chilling sense of tearing apart the last vestiges of my family's comfort. But the alternative, to keep the blood money, to live with the secret, to allow his monstrous crimes to remain buried, unspoken, unpunished, to allow his victims to remain unacknowledged, felt like a betrayal of the victims, a desecration of my own moral compass, especially as a curator of Holocaust history. My knowledge, my profession, demanded truth, demanded justice, demanded accountability. I could no longer look at the world, at history, through the comforting, naive lens of my childhood, seeing only what I wished to see, believing only what was easy to believe. I had to redefine my understanding of justice, of legacy, of what it meant to carry the weight of such a profoundly complicated truth, to be the inheritor of such a terrible paradox. I was utterly alone in this, unable to share the burden with my mother, whose fragile heart, still grieving her father, would undoubtedly shatter under the weight of such a monstrous revelation, such a devastating truth. I paced the small cottage rooms, the rough floorboards creaking under my feet, amplifying my isolation, the sounds of my own restless movement, the only company in my private torment. The decision I knew had to be mine, and mine alone, a choice that would define not just my grandfather's legacy, but my own integrity, my own future, my very soul. I reached out to Dr. Julian Thorne, a brilliant, if notoriously reclusive, Holocaust historian, an ethicist at the University of Cambridge, whose seminal work on moral ambiguity in wartime I admired deeply, whose books lined my own shelves, well-worn and annotated. His office, a towering, precarious stack of ancient texts and yellow documents, smelled of old paper, dust, and intellectual rigor, a scent I found strangely comforting amidst my turmoil, a scent of grounded truth. I secured a discreet meeting, flying to Cambridge under a veil of professional pretense, telling my colleagues I was researching an obscure resistance movement. The journal and the photograph, along with a small, heavy pouch containing a few of the gold coins, were meticulously wrapped and secured in my carry-on, burning against my side, a constant physical reminder of their presence. I presented him with Henri's journal, the gold coins, the forged documents, the SS photograph, laying bare the impossible truth, my voice trembling but firm, each word an agonizing confession, a revelation of profound family shame. He listened in silence, his sharp, intelligent eyes scanning the evidence, his expression a mask of profound gravity, his brow furrowed in deep thought, absorbing every detail. When I finished, the silence in the room stretched, heavy and profound, before he finally looked up, His gaze met mine, unwavering, understanding, devoid of judgment, only a deep, human comprehension. "Emma," he said, his voice a low rumble, carrying the weight of decades of studying human cruelty. "This is unprecedented. A man who systematically profited from the Holocaust, who wore the uniform of the oppressor, who stood at the gates of hell, yet also meticulously documented his efforts to save lives, to actively defy that very system. He was a monster, yes, but also undeniably a savior." He paused, leaning forward, his elbows resting on his desk, his finger steepled, his gaze thoughtful. "The challenge, then, is not to choose between condemning the monster and honoring the savior, as if they were separate entities, two distinct men." His words resonated deeply, cutting through the emotional fog, offering a path forward that honored the complexity of Henri's actions, rather than attempting to simplify them into convenient categories of good or evil. Together, we began to formulate a plan, a strategy born of academic rigor and moral imperative, a delicate dance between historical truth and human compassion. The goal was to reveal the full, unvarnished truth, to make restitution for the stolen gold, and to honor the lives Henri had saved, thereby weaving a new, complex narrative that could perhaps offer a sliver of redemption, not for Henri himself, for whom redemption was likely impossible, but for the devastating legacy he left behind, a legacy I was determined to transform. The first incredibly delicate step was to verify the existence and current whereabouts of the 47 individuals Henri had saved, or their descendants. This required immense discretion and sensitivity, a meticulous approach that recognized the profound trauma inherent in their stories, the fragility of their peace. Dr. Thorne leveraged his extensive network of historians, genealogists, and Holocaust survivor organizations, while I, using my curatorial research skills, meticulously cross-referenced names against public records, old immigration manifests, and even cautiously social media, searching for any trace, any whisper of their existence, a digital archaeology. The process was painstakingly slow, fraught with ethical dilemmas at every turn. How do you approach someone with the news that their beloved grandfather or their own life was saved by a Nazi concentration camp accountant, a man who wore the uniform of their persecutors? What unforeseen pain, what unimaginable trauma might such a revelation unleash? Each discovery was a small tremor of both hope and profound fear, a delicate balance of light and shadow, of joy and profound sorrow. Gradually, painstakingly, we began to confirm lives. An elderly botanist in Israel, his hands still dirt-stained from working in his garden, his eyes holding a depth of ancient sorrow, a quiet dignity. A renowned concert pianist in New York, her fingers still dancing over the keys, her music a testament to life, to beauty, to the triumph of the human spirit. A retired judge in Canada, his mind still sharp, his voice carrying the weight of decades of legal battles, a quiet strength. The descendants of others, their faces holding faint echoes of the lost generation, their stories passed down through hushed whispers. The weight of these lives, unknowingly touched by Henri's monstrous mercy, settled on my shoulders, a tangible burden, a profound responsibility that transcended simple blood ties. Simultaneously, we began the legal process of repatriating the Nazi gold. Through Dr. Thorne's connections, we approached the World Jewish Restitution Organization, a venerable institution dedicated to restoring stolen property to survivors and their heirs. We presented them with the gold coins, carefully documented, and Henri's meticulous ledger of stolen valuables, a chilling testament to his dual nature, to his crimes. The initial skepticism from their legal team was palpable. a cautious reluctance to embrace a story so outlandish, so filled with contradictions, but the irrefutable evidence, the detailed documentation, the cold, hard facts, slowly swayed them, overcoming their professional caution. The gold, valued at a staggering $8 million, was to be used to establish a restitution fund, not just for the direct descendants of Henri's victims, but for broader Holocaust survivor support initiatives, a way to transform tainted wealth into an instrument of profound healing for a generation scarred by unspeakable horrors. This was not about personal profit, not about absolution. It was about transforming blood money into an instrument of tangible, meaningful healing, of attempting to balance a ledger that could never truly be balanced, but whose entries could, at least, be acknowledged. The public revelation was meticulously planned, a multifaceted strategy designed for maximum impact and unwavering truth, leaving no room for ambiguity or denial, no space for comfortable, we thought, half-truths. We chose the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a date imbued with immense significance, a global moment of solemn reflection, a day when the world collectively remembered the darkest chapter in human history. The location: a prestigious historical museum in London, a neutral ground, chosen for its global reach, its unwavering commitment to historical accuracy, and its symbolic resonance as a place of memory and education. The press conference was packed, a sea of flashing cameras and expectant faces, their eyes wide with anticipation, the air thick with anticipation, with a palpable buzz of curiosity and apprehension. I stood beside Dr. Thorne, his presence a comforting anchor, his intellectual authority a solid shield, my hands gripping the podium, my voice, though trembling slightly at first, growing stronger with each word, each syllable a deliberate act of courage, a personal defiance of the lies. I began by presenting the undeniable evidence of Henri Laurent's true identity as an SS concentration camp accountant, displaying the uniform photograph, its stark image magnified on large screens, the forged documents, the chilling details of his role in confiscating valuables from doomed prisoners. The murmurs in the room were palpable, gasps of shock and horror rippling through the crowd, an audible reaction to the profound depravity, to the monstrous truth. I spoke of the $8 million in Nazi gold, now repatriated, displayed in a secured glass case beside me, its cold, malevolent gleam a stark reminder of unspeakable suffering, of human greed, of the cost of indifference. Then I pivoted, my voice imbued with a different kind of solemnity, a profound reverence, and revealed the other ledger, the one detailing the 47 Jewish children he had secretly smuggled to safety, their names now echoing in the silence, their lives a testament to a different kind of truth. I shared compelling excerpts from his journal, the names, the routes, the desperate ingenuity, the meticulous care taken with each fragile life. We presented powerful video testimonies from some of the now elderly survivors, their voices filled with gratitude for the anonymous hand that had saved them, unknowingly the hand of their oppressor, their words resonating with a profound humanity that transcended the horrors. The emotional impact was staggering, a tidal wave of conflicting emotions washing over the room, a collective gasp of disbelief and wonder. This wasn't a simple story of good versus evil. It was a complex, brutal narrative of a man who existed in the morally gray abyss, a profound testament to the unimaginable choices forced upon individuals in times of unimaginable horror, revealing the terrifying depths and surprising flickers of human nature. My grandfather's legacy was forever stained by his crimes, but it was also etched with the impossible, undeniable truth of his acts of clandestine heroism, a paradox that would challenge historical understanding for generations, forcing a re-evaluation of what we thought we knew about history and humanity. The Restitution Fund, established with the $8 million in repatriated gold, became the tangible heart of Henri's complicated legacy, a living memorial, a beacon of hope born from the darkest of deeds. Administered by the World Jewish Restitution Organization, it provided desperately needed support for Holocaust survivors globally: medical care, housing, social services, education initiatives, dignity in their twilight years. The irony was profound, a bittersweet balm. The very wealth built on suffering was now being systematically dismantled and repurposed for healing, for life, for a future where such atrocities might never be repeated. Simultaneously, we launched the Laurent Legacy Foundation for Holocaust Education and Child Rescue, a deliberately complex name reflecting the man at its core, acknowledging his duality, his profound contradiction. Its mission: to educate future generations about the Holocaust, not just its atrocities, its unspeakable evil, but its moral complexities, its moments of unexpected heroism, its profound lessons for humanity. We built a digital archive, meticulously documenting Henri's crimes alongside the powerful, vibrant stories of the 47 children he saved, each life a testament to resilience and survival, a beacon of hope against the darkness, a reminder of the enduring human spirit. I worked tirelessly, dedicating my curatorial expertise to crafting nuanced narratives, ensuring that Henri's full, unvarnished truth was told, without simplification, without excuse, with intellectual honesty and profound empathy. My family name, once a quiet, respectable whisper, was now irrevocably linked to both horror and heroism, a name that sparked fierce debate, challenging easy moral judgments, forcing uncomfortable conversations about intergenerational guilt and responsibility. The destruction of the humble watchmaker myth was complete, replaced by a far more chilling, yet ultimately more human, truth, a truth that demanded full acknowledgement and uncompromising honesty. The public scrutiny was intense, the media relentless in its fascination with the paradox, with the man who was both monster and savior. But through it all, I maintained my focus, my purpose clear: to confront the past, to honor the victims, and to illuminate the impossible choices that define humanity at its darkest, and sometimes, in its most unlikely moments, its brightest. The foundation became a testament to the power of memory, a place where the shadows of the past could illuminate the path to a more just and compassionate future. The journey to closure was not a sudden, clean break, a neat resolution, but a long, arduous process of grieving, of understanding, and of rebuilding, a slow, often painful re-evaluation of everything I believed, every truth I held dear. My mother, when I finally shared the truth with her, several months after the public revelation, her grief for her father still raw, initially crumbled, her face ashen, her tears a torrent of agony for the kind, gentle man she thought she knew, her world utterly shattered by the monstrous deception. It was a painful, raw reckoning, a deep cut to her soul, but over time, slowly, painstakingly, she began to understand, to grapple with the monstrous complexity of her own parentage, eventually finding a fragile peace in the knowledge that her father, in his own twisted way, had also saved lives, that a flicker of good, however small, however compromised, existed within the profound evil. The stolen gold had become an instrument of healing, its weight now transformed into educational programs, medical assistance, and vital support for those whose lives had been shattered by the very darkness Henri had both served and defied. The Laurent Legacy Foundation flourished, its work a testament to the power of truth, its impact resonating across the globe, touching countless lives. I traveled the world, meeting descendants of the 47 children Henri had saved, their stories a profound counterpoint to the horror of his crimes. each one a thread in a new, hopeful tapestry of resilience. I met Isaac Goldberg, now an old man, a renowned botanist, his hands gnarled from a lifetime of tending plants, who spoke of a quiet, unsmiling man who put him on a train, whispering words of courage in a language he barely understood, a guardian angel in a dark uniform, a figure he had only come to understand in his twilight years. I met Lena Steiner's daughter, who shared her mother's haunting painting of a shadow figure, her unknown rescuer, a spectral presence that had haunted her dreams with a mixture of fear and profound gratitude, a mystery finally solved. These connections, these new bonds, became a new kind of family, forged in the crucible of truth and unlikely redemption, a testament to the enduring power of life, of hope, of human connection, of the unbreakable spirit. My own curatorial work was transformed, imbued with a deeper sense of purpose, a profound commitment to truth and empathy. I no longer shied away from the messy, uncomfortable truths of history, but actively sought them out, believing that only in confronting the full spectrum of humanity's capacity for both good and evil could we truly learn, truly heal, truly move forward, enlightened by the past. The cottage in Provence, once a symbol of comfortable deception, became a quiet monument to a man whose choices defied simple categorization, a constant silent reminder that history is never simple, that truth is always complex, and that even in the deepest shadows, a flicker of humanity, however flawed, however contradictory, can sometimes illuminate a path to redemption, not for the past itself, but for the future generations who must grapple with its agonizing lessons, its profound moral questions. The weight of his gold was gone, replaced by the far heavier, yet infinitely more valuable burden of his truth, and the enduring echo of the lives he both stole and saved, forever intertwined in the delicate, agonizing balance of his impossible legacy, a legacy I would carry forward, not as a burden, but as a torch,